There are very few game publishers with a unique identity defined by either their catalog or actions. Sure, many publishers will pick up games that have similar aspects, like Ubisoft, for example, whose games are all distinctly bad, but there isn't really an undeniable quality that makes it easy to tell that they're from the same publisher. There are some, though. In the way that A24 movies are instantly recognizable for their strange concepts and otherworldly ideas, Devolver Digital is a publisher with a reputation for their exceedingly eccentric approach to publishing, with a huge catalog of independent developers and their absurd presentations at gaming conventions. That brings me, though, to the true topic of this video. New Blood Interactive is a game publisher that's grown in popularity over the last 5 years or so. They've published and funded some of my favorite games, and they consistently provide transparency, caring for their community, and an unusual, albeit effective approach to publishing. I almost considered reaching out to their CEO on Twitter for a brief interview, but I'm not big enough on here yet, and I'm not even close to big enough on my Twitter, so I decided it wasn't quite worth it. In 2014, New Blood Interactive was founded by 3 people: lead designer Aaron Alexander, lead programmer Craig DeZago, and CEO Dave Oshry. Though this was not the first time Alexander and Oshry had worked together, starting a company was a much larger commitment than their 2013 remake of first-person shooter Rise of the Triad. Upon the founding of New Blood, they had initially aimed to develop VR titles and had concrete plans for at least one game. Unfortunately, these plans never quite came to fruition. Somewhere along the road, Dave Oshry came into contact with Nick Clinkscales, who was looking for a true publisher for his game Super Galaxy Squadron. Although this game isn't quite a part of New Blood's key brand, it was a vital stepping stone for the publisher's success snowball. In exchange for publishing Clinkscales' game, he agreed to join New Blood as a developer. As far as we know, everything went smoothly from that point on. Super Galaxy Squadron was released in 2015, remastered as Super Galaxy Squadron EX in 2016, and Super Galaxy Squadron EX Turbo was released in March of 2017, which was a, quote, expansion remaster one step from a sequel to the original SGS. The game series was publicly received very well and served as an important establishing piece for what New Blood would become. Sometime between then and January of 2018, Dave Oshry and David Zemansky encountered one another. After recognizing Oshry as one of the key minds who had worked on the Rise of the Triad remake, Zemansky decided to spontaneously pitch to him Dusk, his retro first-person shooter revolving around a man single-handedly taking on a cult attempting to summon a Lovecraftian demon. Obviously, Oshry loved it, considering that New Blood released Dusk into early access in January of 2018. Dusk was a huge hit for both New Blood and Zemansky, providing enormous financial success at a relatively early stage in the company. This huge win gave New Blood a plethora of new customers and finally some brand recognizability. Shortly after that, to capitalize on the success, they signed a publishing deal with the developers of 2 games, A Medieval and Faith the Unholy Trinity. The studio also pulled in Dylan Rogers to help Zemansky finish up Dusk, which saw a full release in December of 2018. Now both New Blood employees, Dylan Rogers and David Zemansky, are working collaboratively on Gloomwood, a stealth-oriented immersive sim set in a grim yet expansive Victorian metropolis. Oshry saw Gloomwood's development as a major landmark for the company, moving New Blood into an era where they not only published games, but actually developed them in-house, making use of the many talented developers at their disposal. In the gap between Dusk's full 2018 release and the early access release of Gloomwood in 2022, New Blood published Ultrakill, which is now arguably the studio's most recognizable title. It also picked up Faith, officially publishing the episode-based Satanic Panic game under New Blood's label. Before New Blood's involvement, Faith was a solo-published venture. Initially released on itch.io in 2017, Erdorf Games only had a single chapter completed, but that single chapter was enough to get people's attention. Although the full game is not all that long, let alone the single chapter that we're discussing right now, it managed to be included in a list of 2017's best horror games by video game journalist IGN, who you might have heard of. Faith utilizes retro graphics akin to the Atari 2600 or the Apple II computer, which is very effective when coupled with the sudden, jarring rotoscope sequences present at several points throughout its 3 chapters. The second chapter of Faith was released in early 2019, once again to itch.io by Erdorf Games. Although Erdorf seemed to be doing fine on their own, they partnered with New Blood Interactive in order to see a more commercial release. With this, they announced towards the end of 2019 that Faith the Unholy Trinity would be in the works, an ambitious full release, including the previous 2 chapters, as well as a third and final chapters, along with some shiny new features to go alongside it. My point in specifically bringing up Faith is to illustrate how New Blood has cemented itself as a publisher who cares about its developers and fostering indie titles. Having picked up Faith from a relatively no-name creator who had seen only mild success at the time, they're a publisher who wants their customers to win as much as it wants its developers to win. Their website site's slogan, for God's sake, is "We love you and we hate money." They encourage their employees to put out the best quality products they can, unlike many AAA studios these days who prefer to meet deadlines rather than meet expectations. You could say that achievement is more on the individual developers than the company itself, but that's just not true. Have you ever heard the term industry standard? Industry standard is something that is accepted as normal across an entire industry. The industry standard for game studios is crunch culture, forcing developers and programmers to work day and night every second they legally can until the exact minute a game is supposed to be released. Most of the time, that results in an unfinished game. What's worse than an unfinished game is that most of the time it also results in overworked, stressed out developers, programmers, and whatever other position is filled on the team. But New Blood Interactive is staunchly against that. In an article from Game Informer, Dave Oshry said, and yes, I'm going to read this whole section in the interest of being thorough, quote, "Video game consumers are the harshest critics, so if you've got to push a release date, or if your game isn't what you've promised, they're going to annihilate you. No Man's Sky. Who knows how much more time those guys could have used, and who knows if it was just a disconnect between the marketing and the actual game. But they worked so hard. They killed themselves to get that game out, and then to just have the entire world jump down their throat? That's gotta be an awful feeling. There's a million studies about what stress does to your body, to your mind, to even simple things like your skin, your hair. Did you see what Sean Murray looked like before and after? Unquote. Sean Murray did not look very good after No Man's Sky's development and media cycle. He was excited. Now he just looks tired. I'll summarize this next part for you. In an earlier section of the article, Oshry essentially says that it's very easy to get developers to crunch without mandating it. It's ultimately avoidable in a lot of cases, but publishers and developers don't want to let people down. All they need to hear is the idea that they're going to fail people's expectations of what a game was going to be, and they'll work to the bone to make the best product that they can in the time that they have left. What gamers seem to forget is that behind every game, whether that be a half-baked open-world RPG or a flawless indie platformer or whatever the fuck the state of the game or genre is, there are people who slaved over that game and genuinely consider it their life's work. Even when a video game isn't good, crunch or not, all of those bad reviews go straight to the developers' heads. It's like spending all that time and money you need to go to college, get a degree, then getting out and finally being hired for your dream job just for someone to tell you that you suck at it and also they're not going to pay you. The gaming industry can be a very rewarding field, but it can also be an incredibly toxic one for producers and consumers alike. But New Blood aims to fix that. They're not the only one, but they're the one I'm choosing to talk about. Even if their influence doesn't reach outside of their own publishing game studio, it's enough that they value their employees over their profits. Oshry has even gone on record stating that he is pro-union. I'm actually going to quote him again here. In the same Game Informer article, Oshry said, quote, "There are no standardized institutions, there's no standardized pay, there's no union. Even the screen actors have a guild, but game devs don't. It's either you're not getting paid enough, or you're getting put on a 3 to 6 month contract and then being cast aside. There's absolutely no job security in video game development." Oshry understands this. He gets that the industry is rife with injustice for employees of all kinds, which is why he aims to change it with his own company. Luckily, there's no one better to understand this problem than the CEO and co-founder of such a successful growing game studio. That part was really important, and probably the most important part of the video, but it was a little heavy, so let's talk about something a little bit more fun. Blood. More specifically, New Blood's brand, because that's what it's all about. As you can probably tell simply by looking at my channel or by this video, I like New Blood a lot. I don't think they've put out a single bad game yet, and I really admire what they're doing to try and change the gaming landscape. What New Blood has built their brand around, however, is their catalog of ultra-violent retro titles. Dusk, Ultrakill, Faith, Gloomwood, Amid Evil. While these aren't necessarily new ideas that they're putting forward, they are incredibly well executed and innovated upon. They're bringing back quote-unquote boomer shooters in a way that no other studio is. My favorite staple of pretty much all their games is the way they include secrets. While the content of the games themselves can occasionally and often be fairly gruesome, their little Easter eggs aren't. Some of them are simple power-ups like Ultrakill's dual wield and full health bubbles, but other times they're references to other media or just some really goofy shit. Nothing is taken all that seriously outside of the game's primary content, the only thing that needs to be taken seriously. One of my favorite examples of this is something called Hakido, an NPC that you can find at an obscure location in one of Ultrakill's levels. By finding a hamster at a completely separate obscure location in the level and bringing it to Hakido, you'll get some dialogue and a huge Hakido rises from the sea, engulfs your screen in white, and crashes your game. It's completely out of place in all of the right ways, and the first time you encounter it, especially if you discover it all on your own, it's absolutely hilarious. And this is what you get to enjoy and look forward to in each and every New Blood game. A self-contained story with strange, well-written characters, fluid and meaty gameplay, and a huge variety of wacky secrets and other content. Take, for example, the soap from Dusk. Soap is a discoverable item in every single level of the game, always being in a difficult to find and reach spot which you can pick up and throw to do 1 billion damage to any enemy in the game. Because they're demons, it's soap and it cleanses them, get it? It's not broken, it's just a fun addition. This little secret is such an iconic part of Dusk that Ultrakill's developer included it in several levels of his own game. It's a simple example, but this is a great demonstration of the internal community that New Blood has fostered. The developers respect each other and their ideas, which is why Hakeda paid tribute to Dusk in that way, and it's the same reason why David Zemanski went on to help with the key development process on Gloomwood with his own Dusk partner Dylan Rogers. New Blood might be relatively focused as of right now, but they're looking to expand their expertise into a lot of different genres, starting with Gloomwood. From boomer shooters to immersive sims, New Blood's future catalog is going to be a lot more complex than it is right now. Dave Oshry has even said that the studio wants to expand into things like visual novels and more story-centric experiences. There's even been whispers of true RPGs similar to like Fallout, or even car combat games like Twisted Metal or Crossout. New Blood has a lot going for it, and if they continue to apply what makes them such a great studio, I have no doubt in my mind that someday they could be one of the biggest. That is, of course, if they don't lose sight of what made them so praiseworthy to begin with. Their unwavering support of the people who run the gaming industry. Okay, well that was the meat of the video, but there's a couple of other things I want to bring up that I just couldn't really fit into the main script. This video is not really what I envisioned initially. What I set out to do here was point out the key aspect of New Blood's games and how they built their brand around ultraviolence, hence the thumbnail. Speaking of the thumbnail, I might change it, so the thumbnail that I'm talking about right now might actually not be what it is. So here's what the original one looked like if I do change it. If I didn't, then, you know, nothing changed, but whatever. If I didn't show you that part, if I didn't show it to you, you know, it probably wouldn't have made a lot of sense if I did change it, but again, I don't know if I'm going to change it yet, so this is a whole thing, but whatever. I did a lot of research for this video, a lot more research than I normally do, at least, and there were a lot of rewrites and revisions, which is why some parts of the video might feel out of place, or they might not make sense in the order that I put them in. At least that's how I feel, because I'm not a very good writer, but yeah, like I said, that's just how I feel. But if you enjoyed it, don't listen to me, and keep enjoying it, because that would make my life a lot easier. Speaking of which, if you are still here, that is pretty cool, so thanks. Like the rest of this video, this section kind of got away from me already, so let's talk about the other stuff that I couldn't fit into the main script, like New Blood's website. As I said earlier, their slogan is "We love you and we hate money," which I just think is really funny. Other than that, it's just a really nice looking website, you know? I like it. It looks pretty. They also have a bunch of little Easter eggs, I guess you could say, with like links to their stuff. For example, if you use wehate.money, it takes you to the browser version of New Blood's publisher Steam, which is cool. If you use devilmayquake.com, it takes you to Ultrakill on Steam. GaryLovesYou.com takes you to Faith. Resident Thievel takes you to Gloomwood, and Doom Noir takes you to another immersive sim currently in the works called Fallen Aces. This next one gets its own sentence. If you type in notfortnite.com, it takes you to the Dusk webpage. Hilarious. I could not get enough of it, I swear to God. There might be more, but these are the ones that I'm aware of, so whatever. This one's good too. If you go to the legal page on their website, it takes you to this page, a Better Call Saul spoof that just says "Sue Dave here," then refers to him as Dude with Money, and also just says "Please don't sue us" at the bottom of the page. So yeah, I just like think it's funny. Also, this is the page for the newsletter. Holy shit, I need to end this video. If you enjoy the video and you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. If by chance you did like the video, go ahead and like it. You can also comment or whatever, I don't care, but it would be nice. It comments and likes, you know, they do really help me out. So again, if you like the video, then feel free to do all that stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I've talked enough this video, so you guys can get back to your lives, and I guess I'll get back to mine. So with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.